Hey guys, this is Mrs. Beaver here, and I wanted to take a few minutes to share with you about one of my favorite battles ever. In all the wars that I've studied and taught about over the years, this one is probably my most favorite. And as you saw on the previous screen, it's called the Battle of Cowpens. Now, before we start talking about this, I want to remind you what somebody does, the militia. So the militia was a group of men that were not part of the official Continental Army. Every colony had its own militia. So there was a South Carolina militia, and it was an official group of fighters. A lot of them had fought in previous battles, wars like the French and Indian War, etc. But during the Revolutionary War, the militia did not do well in fighting face to face with the British. They were scared of the British. They were intimidated by the British. And so the militia during the Revolutionary War were known to turn and run. Okay. And the main form of warfare they had used during the war was what we call partisan. And you guys have already talked about this, partisan or guerrilla warfare. And it really, what it meant was surprise. So you have this idea that the British were used to fighting face to face. They were used to knowing where they were going to meet their enemy. That's how wars have been fought for hundreds and hundreds of years before this. You lined up in straight lines and you aimed your guns and you fired and then you charged, and you could use your side arms at that time. Whatever they may be. So the guerrilla warfare really took a toll on the British because they were not used to fighting that way. And it really is one of the ways that the Patriots, the Continentals, were able to win the war. But anyway, I digress. Back to Cowpens. So the American commander at Cowpens realized that he could use this to his advantage. Okay. He knows the British expect the militia to turn and run. So let's go to Cowpens. Cowpens, of course, is in the upstate of South Carolina. It's not too far from the city of Spartanburg. You can go and visit the battlefield still today. It's pretty amazing to walk on battlefields where all this happened. So we have this series of hills, okay, that are there. The upcountry is very hilly. It's the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So there's a lot of hills, and they're also going to use that the Americans are going to use the hills to their advantage as well. So here's the battle plan. What color were the Continental Army? Do you remember? They were blue, right? So I'm going to draw my Continental Army. And notice they're on the other side of this hill. And I'll do a little key down here. Blue equals Continental. Okay. Now, way over here on this side, we have our, you know what I'm using? If I'm using red, what color who do you think this signifies? The red coats, which would be who? The British. So, the British redcoats. And then the militia typically did not have uniforms. They actually a lot of times wore old military uniforms or wore their plain clothing. So I'm going to use brown to denote the militia. So the plan is to have a group of militia here, and then there's a second group of militia a little further back. And these British cannot see the Continentals. So they are totally unaware that they're even in the area. Are you starting to kind of think about what might happen? So the commander of the Continental Army rallied these men and told them, I know you can do this. I know that you can fight the British head on. All I'm asking of you is 2 shots. That's it. All I want you to do is fire 2 shots, and then you can turn and run. And guess what? That's exactly what the British were expecting, right? Cornwallis, man, they were so excited when they saw the militia. They knew they were going to eat them in a heartbeat. And the big deal with Cowpens is the British, of course, had an advantage in the war for a long time. But then the Americans won at Kings Mountain and things started to turn. So this is a huge, huge battle for both the Americans and the British. So I want you to fire 2 shots, militia, and then I want you to turn and I want you to run, 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 run. And you're going to run over these hills and you're going to fall in right behind the Continentals. So then you can serve as backup for them. And then guess what's going to happen? And it worked perfectly. We ready, we aim, we fire. The militia fire their 2 shots. They turn and they run and they dart over that mountain and they go behind the Continentals, and the British are ready to be done. They are ready to go home. This is not where they live. They miss their families. They're ready to finish them off. And so the British commanders tell them to charge. They tell them to finish it off. And so these British soldiers start racing over these fields, over these hills, and they go over the fields, and guess what? There, face to face, they end up with the Continentals. And it ends up being a huge, huge victory for the Americans. And Kings Mountain is really considered the turning point of the war for the Americans, but Cowpens stops the British advancement into North Carolina, and this is really when things change for the better for the Americans. So the Battle of Cowpens is awesome. I love the battle plan of this. And I think the reason why I love it so much is because they took advantage of their weakness. And I think they saw their own weakness. And for us as people, I think it's great when we can say, you know what, this is a weakness, but I want to learn how to use it as a strength. And that's exactly what the Americans did here. They saw their weakness and they used it as a strength. What a lesson for all of us. So I hope you guys loved learning about the Battle of Cowpens. If you're ever see you in the hallway or stop by and talk about it some more, I love to talk history. Have a great day, guys.